This is West of Everest, coming to you about 22 hours after the Red River rivalry yesterday ended. A bitterly disappointing edition of the Red River Shootout this year. OU absolutely whomped by Texas in the second half of that game. They lose 23-6. I'm Grant Benson, joined today by Brady Trantham of Through the Keyhole fame. This is now 3 of 6 weeks where Brady is joining me on the postgame podcast. Lee again, hobnobbing with the Glitterati down in Austin, Texas. So everybody, you can kind of come to your own conclusions there, but Lee was in Austin this week. So is he a spy? Is he a mole? Who can say? I'm not sure.
If he was, he didn't do his job because the exact opposite of what we thought was going to happen happened. So maybe is Lee a double agent? Does he like Austin?
I have no
too
idea.
much?
But it's up to the point right now where I just kind of think it's not a coincidence at this point in time. There's something going on. But that's a conversation for another day. Brady, you were at the game yesterday. How you doing today, one day after?
Oh, fine. Look, anyone that's gone there, I think everybody has the understanding that you go there with the absolute understanding that no matter how confident you feel about your team, whether you're an OU or you're a Texas fan, you're essentially volunteering to essentially be disappointed, and more than just disappointed, because there's nothing more demoralizing than walking out of that stadium when you can hear Texas fight, when you can hear all that crap thrown at you. And look, I'm with my wife, and she went because I wanted her to kind of see, like, hey, this is something I really care about. She doesn't care about football whatsoever. And so she's, wearing OU clothes and just being a good sport. And she had a good time, and she kind of liked the pageantry of it all. She understood that, yeah, this feels like bigger than just a game that she's gone to at OU, or we've gone to the OU Auburn game, OU Cincinnati game over the years. She kind of understood the weight and the gravity of it all. But then I did warn her, like, if OU does lose, we got to walk out of the Cotton Bowl, and that takes an eternity. You're surrounded by sweaty people. You're sweaty. You taste like sunscreen because it's just sweating down your face the whole time. And then you've got to get out of the fair, which is an affair all of its own. And then trying to get an Uber or a Lyft out of the state fair. And the further and further you walk out of the state fairgrounds, it's not the most fun environment to be in. And especially when you're already pissed off and looking at your phone because all your friends are texting you about fire this person needs to go, or portal bust, stuff like that. I mean, I don't know who that would be about, but we can get into that later. But overall, it was still fun. Like, you know what you sign up for when you go to that game. I'd rather go there and watch us lose than stay home and watch it. So if anyone's out there thinking, like, do I really want to go to the OU Texas game? Please go. It's fun. And also shout out to my co-host, Alan Kinney. He gave me his tickets, so my wife and I were able to go sit in the stadium. And I was on the 50-yard line. Never sat on the 50, and that was a bucket list for me to check. So that was pretty fun.
No, very cool, and I'm glad she could experience that for the first time. Even if you're not a football fan or even a sports fan, I've told this to people a lot, that it's still just a hell of a thing to experience. It's so cool. Like I live in the Twin Cities of Minnesota, and Minnesota and Texas have the two biggest state fairs in the country. And there is at the Minnesota State Fair, I'd say like the fairgrounds at Minnesota are similar in size to Texas, but in the middle of the Minnesota State Fairground, there's like this giant, they call it the grandstand. It's where they have like the outdoor concerts and everything.
Yeah.
And so I always try to tell everyone here in Minnesota, picture that, but instead of the like 20,000 seat grandstand that they have, it's a 90,000 seat college football stadium. And it's just it's a really, really cool thing, despite kind of the result and everything. It is still, I mean, it's the most unique setting in college sports, I would argue. Maybe outside of the Rose Bowl, it's the most unique setting in all of American sports. It is an absolute delight to go there, but you're also right. You are signing yourself up for heartbreak if it doesn't work out. And I'm glad you bring up, I mean, just like it's so painful, especially when you're on the losing side. And I've been there on the losing side 3 times, where just like all of just the super corny, difficult to withstand Texas stuff that you have to endure there. The give him hell. Oh, I mean, just on repeat for 3, 4 times every minute that stuff goes, and it's just like it is insufferable. You got to see all the Texas fans, their cowboy hats and their cowboy boots and their belt buckles, and the whole thing is just, and it makes it even that much better, right? When you win the game, because it's just that much sweeter.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that was not the case yesterday. It was uh really, and as far since I've been doing this, and by this I mean dedicating a large part of my life to following this program and this team. That one yesterday, that ranks up there with one of the more disappointing losses that honestly I feel like I have experienced as an OU fan in a quarter of a century. I mean, that was as a super super disappointing game, and I want to start here. So we're going to start with sort of the big ticket item. Let's start with with our starting quarterback who came back from a broken thumb, played every single snap of this game, and frankly, I thought up until that final drive of the second quarter, the first half, I thought Mateer was playing relatively well, and then from that point on, from the start of that second drive, I thought he was quite dreadful.
Yeah. It's to me, it's really hard. It's really hard for me to kind of grade John Mateer because I think, first of all, I just want to get this out of the way. I'm not going to entertain, like, and this is just my personal opinion. You can go over to Through the Keyhole and tell me I'm an idiot there. Don't do it in the comments here because this is not my show. But I'm not going to sit here and entertain any silly things like they should have played Michael Hawkins, or John Mateer didn't practice enough, so that's why, or, oh, John Mateer was hurt, so that's why he played awful. There are realities. He started practicing, I think, on Monday. I think that's what George Storia said on their post game pod. I think he was cleared officially by the doctors on Thursday. So I would imagine that leading up to that point, he wasn't really able to go full as much as he possibly could. And the reality is that showed itself in the game. A lot of his passes were behind his receivers. The reason why that typically happens if you're a quarterback at this level, if you are behind on your passes, it's because you're waiting a split second too long to throw the ball. If he had never got hurt and he had been practicing up to this point, he probably would have been a little bit sharper. So, yes, the reality exists. However, I have this rule, Grant. I'm weird. If you get hurt during the game, but you still play, but it's visible that you've taken kind of a downgrade, it's like, okay, there's a reality there that player got hurt and it directly influenced the game. If you start the game prior to, and you were injured prior, but you start the game, I'm sorry, you're healthy. And with the way the game went in the first half, Grant, OU could have won the game with John Mateer at whatever status he is if the defense didn't just get absolutely pushed around by what we all identified was the worst offensive line that Texas has trotted out since, the Tom Herman days. Probably going to be one of the worst next to South Carolina, who just fired their offensive line coach today, by the way. Next to South Carolina, the worst offensive line OU's going to see the rest of the season. OU's defensive line got pushed around on one drive, and that one drive undid everything. It completely flipped the script of the entire game, and it forced OU into a situation where, John Mateer, we need you to be Heisman caliber, and that's asking too much of a guy who is a gamer and came back 17 days after a surgery. And so I, like the bleeding heart OU guy that I am, I applaud John Mateer for gutting it out. He is I understand why the team follows him and was so quick to follow him in the offseason because he's impossible not to follow. And even the corny side of me is watching all this post-game footage of him on the field while the team's doing the alma mater, and John's just looking at the big screen, watching Arch Manning get the golden hat, and just sitting there and watching. I'm just like, yeah, if I was good enough to play football at this level, that's what I would do, because I would just be like, I want to be pissed off the next time I come here, and I just want to remember that crap. So I thought John played well. I thought that even with those the first interception, all season long, this defense has answered the call whenever John has had his weekly interception or his weekly turnover. And they did on that first interception. They got the ball back off of a punt. The last one, that bad throw, it cost OU points. I don't know if they would have had time to even kick a field goal at that point with how long that play took to develop. That whole process was broken by Brent Venables, and we'll get to him later. But I just wanted to get out of the way that I appreciate that John played. He gave OU the best chance in this game to win the game. I thought the way the game went in the first half was completely the script that I assumed it should be, considering that he had not practiced for a handful of weeks. And if that was going to be allowed to continue, if the defense kept up their end of the bargain in the second half, it very well could have. OU could have won this game 9-6, 9-3, the way it was going. But it just took one drive for that defense to completely flip the script and put OU in a position that they did not want to be in, and they could not overcome it. But having said all that, Grant, it's like midway through the fourth quarter, and John Mateer rolls off a 30, 40-yard run. And if not for one of the most unnecessary holds that I can, like, why are you holding? Why are you holding there? There's no reason for you to even hold there. It has nothing to do with the play. I mean, I'm not saying that they shouldn't have thrown a flag. I'm just saying, like, why did you hold? If it would have
Yeah.
been something that spurned on the run, it's like, that's why he was able to bust a long run. But if that doesn't happen, if the ref just simply misses that hold, OU's in a position to tie the game, or at least get down like by
I
3
think
at that
that
point.
was
It was a
from
it was a one
if I
score game.
remember that correctly. I'm pretty sure that run came after Texas's punt return for a touchdown. I have the drive chart up here. I'll go back and fact check myself there, but and I'll get into that like with the tight end blocking on when we talk about and we'll talk about like Arbuckle and the offense because like I'm still seeing a whole lot of stuff that drove me insane during the Jeff Lebby days, especially the 2023 season where you're asking guys to do stuff that they're bad at.
Yes.
But we'll get to that, and I also don't want to entertain any sort of thought that Michael Hawkins should have been the guy to play this. I said on the midweek show that if Michael Hawkins play or starts and plays this game, OU is in genuine danger of getting shut out. And I think as what we saw the game, Texas defense I thought played really well, extremely well. And I think Michael Hawkins would have been in an absolute blender if he would have played that game. And you never know what's gonna happen. I mean, so like Tate Sandell has a freaking cannon of a leg. And so who knows if OU would have gotten shut out, but they would have really struggled to move the ball just as much, if not more, with Michael Hawkins playing. And so the whole thing to me was weird. Like I thought the entire first half of that game, the script of the game and everything kind of went exactly how I anticipated. I did not anticipate OU to like go up and down the field consistently against Texas, even with John Mateer. What I did expect was I expected Mateer to kind of look like he had in high leverage situations the entire year, which is good on third down, which he was in the first half. OU on third down, up until they went 3-and-out in the third quarter. I think they were like something like 5 of 7 on third down or something like that, which is
Yep.
terrific. And they were still kind of staying ahead of the chains, and it looked like to me it kind of looked like the Ben Arbuckle offense that we had seen with maybe some hiccups here or there. But sometimes when you're going against what is obviously one of the 3 or 4 best defenses in college football, Texas, sometimes you just tip your cap to a team that has a bunch of NFL draft picks, especially on the edges and in the back end as well. Where I did think, and so you talk about, when you say the third quarter drive with Texas, are you talking about the opening drive of the third quarter where like their 14 play drive
Yeah.
to open
Yeah,
the third
where
quarter?
OU had them dead to rights twice on third and longs and missed tackles, especially. And I I have been harping on Robert Spears Jennings all season long, at least whenever we talk about the secondary play on Through the Keyhole. And I was especially disappointed in that play in particular when he missed when he whipped on the tackle. Was it Wisner on 3rd and 7? It was just Arch just kind of like gave up on the play and just do something, make a play, which is when you're a quarterback at a place like OU or Texas, sometimes that's the best play you can make is just go make a play, 4 or 5 star caliber player. And
That's
that's
something we
exactly
used to see all the time in the Lincoln Riley era.
Yeah,
where we like you just dump it off into the flats, and then an NFL player would make a play.
yeah. And like all morning, I'd been kind of thinking about that play and just getting more and more disappointed. I've since seen Robert Spears Jennings, like his post game comments, and he understood like the mistake he made, and it kind of makes me remember that these are human beings, and they know just like we know, they know even more. Having said that, that was that was the play. Now, would Texas still had gone on to win the game? I mean, I think the way that it was going, of course, I think they were the better team yesterday. It would have been uglier. It would have been you would have had more opportunities for OU to just randomly make a play to then flip their own script in the same vein that Texas did on this drive. But yeah, that in the stadium, Grant, on that particular play, and I was talking to your brother about this on the phone this morning. On that particular play, Arch throws it to the flats, and you're thinking that's a good thing. And then I see Robert Spears Jennings just have him dead to rights, and it was like time stood still. And in my gut, I just knew they're going to whiff this. They're going to whiff this tackle, and then boom. And at
I
that
felt the
point, it
same
was
way.
like, at that point, it was, it's going to be hard to win. It's going to be hard to win this one.
And so I'm kind of trying to. So it's kind of sounds like we've transitioned over to the defense here. I don't think there's much to say
Good.
about John Mateer and stuff like that. I mean, it was what it was. I thought he played well enough for them to win the game if he played like that over the 4 quarters. But he and the entire offense and the offensive line was bad in the second half. But here's where I want to start, because Texas had 3 consecutive drives in this game, starting in the second quarter, that went over 10 plays and were also scoring drives. And this is where, and so I want to look, I just want to go to one play that I think completely changed the game. And of course, what you brought up, and a lot of these plays involve Trey Wisner. And so, which to me is really frustrating, because Trey Wisner is a nice player. He's not like really an NFL guy at all. But with Trey Wisner, his thing, and this is his best quality, to tackle him, you have to finish your tackle. He does not go down on contact. And I mean, that's what you want out of a running back. But if you finish your tackle like the way that you're supposed to, guy goes down. Like he's not going to be that dynamic of a threat. And so I thought the biggest play of the game that totally changed the fortunes of both teams. This happened on when OU was up 6-0, and OU had just had a 12-play, 40-yard field goal drive where they took up about 6.5 minutes of time, and like Texas's defense was on the field a lot in the first half. Texas gets the ball after that. Very first play is an Arch Manning 4-yard pass to Ryan Wingo. It's 2nd and 6. The very next play, Texas runs just your typical little inside zone to Trey Wisner. Mason Thomas goes across the face of his defender, and he meets Wisner about 2 yards deep in the backfield. And what does he do? He flails at him, and he does not wrap up. He's there in position to make a tackle for a loss. It's going to be 3rd and 8 if he does it. But what does he do? He sort of just dives at Wisner. He does not wrap up. And what does Wisner do when someone doesn't wrap up? He just keeps his legs moving, and he goes, and he busts off a 37-yard run into OU territory. Now, OU's defense bowed up, and they held Texas to a field goal on that drive to make it 6-3. But that was the play that changed everything in my mind. That changed the entire fortunes of the defense the rest of the game. You get Wisner down there. Like I said, it's 3rd and 8. You have Arch Manning, who, coming into this game, Texas, one of the worst teams in the Power 4 on 3rd down. And up to that point, Texas was living up to their billing coming into this game. They were poor on 3rd down leading up to that drive. And from that point on, Texas just had a different gear about them. They made every play. Every 3rd down conversion was the right read by Arch. And they gave OU's defense gave Texas just a little bit of breathing room, a little bit of light. And I think that just breathed a ton of life into Texas. And I'm frustrated about it. And so I know the offense was terrible yesterday. It really was. It was not good enough to win the game. But man, I'm telling you, OU lost that game because their defense got absolutely pantsed for about 4 consecutive series by Texas
Yep.
when OU's defense could not get off the field. What did we say about Texas coming into this game? They are an inefficient offense. They are overly reliant on explosive plays down the field with Arch Manning. OU eliminated those. He did not have any explosive passing plays in this game. Nobody really got free other than the DeAndre Moore touchdown, but that was in the red zone and it was just a miscommunication by the defensive backs. And so I'm absolutely completely frustrated that OU's allowed Texas to essentially get right and correct all of the things that had been plaguing them the entire season. OU, best third down defense in college football. Texas, I think the worst third down offense in the SEC coming into this game. Texas converted like 9 consecutive third downs in the second half of the game. Like, what? I'm sorry. Like, defense lost OU this game yesterday.
Yeah.
It's on them.
No, absolutely. And the reason why I agree with that, and I understand why some people would initially say, whoa, 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 whoa. I mean, they held them to what? 16 offensive points, and they gave up the punt return. That's not on the defense. And like the offense was so bad. Mateer threw 3 interceptions. Just because you can remember parts of the game where offense, defense, whoever you want to say played well enough to win in any particular game. Just because you can remember moments where they performed well, because I can tell you one right off the bat. John Mateer threw 3 interceptions. OU didn't surrender any points off of those turnovers. They did not lose this game because they simply handed the ball more to Texas and they used those opportunities to get separation. That didn't happen. I mean, the closest they got was the missed field goal off of the 3rd interception. I mean, the 2nd interception is probably the most damning because that in effect took points away directly from OU. They could have kicked a field goal if Mateer was a little bit, in terms of like his timing, if he was better, he probably hits Burks for a touchdown there.
And we'll get to that drive, which is just,
yeah.
I'm sorry, vintage Brent Venables.
Yeah.
A vintage Brent Venables sequence, which was, I mean, I'm looking at the drive chart now. I cannot believe this. OU got the ball with 4 minutes and 24 seconds to go in the half on that drive, and it's just absolutely maddening, the end of that, the end of the half there. But what I'll say is, like, Texas had 3 consecutive drives where they scored 13 points. They ran 29 plays and gained about 180 yards and took up an entire quarter worth of. That's your game. I mean, that's your. Actually, I'm sorry, more. Almost. It took up about 18 minutes of game time on those 3 drives. And by the time that OU's defense held Texas to a field goal on the last of those drives for it to be a 13-6, OU's defense was cooked. They couldn't get off the field on 3rd down. They had been on the field way too much. OU had gone 3 and out, their only possession of the 3rd quarter. And I know the offense was bad, but OU is a defensive team now, and Texas, frankly, is, I think South. Texas is closer to who they were against Florida than they were, I think, in this game. I think Texas played over their heads. I think Texas's offense is really limited. I think they're still going to struggle to move the ball on virtually everybody the rest of the season. And I was the guy coming in, and all hands up. I said on this podcast in the midweek show that I think it's probably the right idea for OU to force Texas to be really, really efficient between the 20s, and because they've shown that they can't do that and that they're going to make mistakes. And I do think that's what OU's game plan coming into this game was. They didn't really play how they had played the previous 5 games. And you know what? Texas took that and they ran with it. So hands up, I was wrong about that, but I was really, really frustrated to see that, especially after that, the 14-play, 75-yard touchdown drive to open the 3rd quarter. You didn't make any adjustments, man. They just kind of stuck with their same bit.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up Brent Venables because, I mean, you basically said what I was going to say about blaming the defense in this game for the loss. Understanding it's a team sport, everybody played poor enough to lose, and everyone has to share this L. But when you are coached by Brent Venables and you are there for a defensive program, you have to expect greatness from your defense. And we have seen a lot of evidence to support that this season. The defensive line has played exceptionally well. Texas' biggest weakness is their offensive line. You don't have to know X's and O's to understand that OU's got a gigantic advantage there, even more so than Texas' defensive line, which is just as good as OU's against OU's offensive line, because at least OU's offensive line has shown an ability to win battles and win possessions against Michigan, who up until last night I thought had a really good defense, but yesterday was just kind of a big unfortunate sign for OU fans, I guess, because everything you thought was true is actually incorrect. Maybe that was just the case for yesterday, and things can change because it's a long season, as we all know. But this is a defensive team, and I had the feeling the entire time that John Mateer was going to play in this game. And I'm not saying that to like pat myself on the back. That was just me going out on a limb and just kind of sharing my gut feeling on Through the Keyhole what I thought was going to happen. I thought John Mateer was going to play. I also I also mentioned that I don't expect him to be able to do everything that we've seen him be able to do at the same level, because I mean, the reality is he's probably not practiced that much, and OU Texas is a different animal. So it's going to be on the defense to just win every battle. Like they need to set up John Mateer to make the least amount of plays possible so that they can win this game 9-6 or 13-3. I think I said 23-13 OU. And that was well within striking distance. With the way OU was able to move the ball in the first half, they had their opportunities and they absolutely squandered them. Going back to Brent Venables, this was just another example of Brent Venables just being outcoached in this game by Steve Sarkisian, just absolutely. And it didn't seem like it because there wasn't anything necessarily cool or gadgety or X's and O's like scouts are like salivating over, like, look what Sark did to Brent. It's like sometimes you just need to do what works. Sometimes you just need to look your guys in the face and say, I think we're tougher than them, so go out there and prove me right. That's what Sark said in the second half, or at halftime probably, was, hey guys, it's 6-3. We're really close. Let's see if they can handle some pressure on the on defense. Let's run right at them. Because as you already mentioned, Grant, with like the key plays, the missed tackles, that's the thing with Brent Venables' defense. It's not always he puts a lot of pressure on his secondary. He puts a lot of pressure on just individual players to make individual plays by themselves. And if that player doesn't make the play, there's nobody there. I don't know why with Brent Venables' scheme that's the case, because it seems like other aggressive defensive player or defensive coaches don't have that same problem. It seems like teams know how to swarm to the football without over pursuing at the same time. You know, like, what do I know? I'm not a scout, but that's a problem. And that's why when you lose games like this where you have an advantage on defense, if they don't hit a home run on every possession, I'm sorry, it's a failure. I don't want to hear how great they are anymore until they go back and prove it over the next 2 or 3 weeks. And look, they've got opportunities to prove that correct as well. If they beat South Carolina and Ole Miss, okay, they are a really good team and they just had a bad day, but that bad day is going to haunt them for a long time.
Yeah, I want to be totally clear about this. Texas, I would Oklahoma in this game. That is how Texas won this game. And I agree that, because, look at the scoreboard and we see how especially the second half kind of, unfolded. And obviously Sark pulled Brent Venables' pants down in this game. I mean, that was the literal offensive coordinator versus defensive coordinator matchup there. But this is something that's frustrating to me, because based on who Texas was going into this game, it wasn't just Ohio State and Florida that their offense struggled against. Their offense struggled against San Jose State. It struggled against UTEP. This was not a good offense coming into this game. And I think it's pretty clear that Texas's game plan into this game was to Iowa, Oklahoma, was to try to play the game in a phone booth and just sort of like lean on them. And I want to I mean this so seriously. That idea that Texas had was a terrible game plan. It's a bad idea. It's a terrible idea. The fact that it worked is so maddening to me, is so frustrating. And that's why I just and call me just that I have battered OU fan syndrome or whatever. And you and I have talked about this, but I'm absolutely sick of Texas playing over their heads in this game. I'm absolutely tired of it. And listen, give Texas credit. They whooped OU's butt yesterday. I mean, but also what their plan was should not have worked. It really should not have worked. Texas is still going to lose 2 or 3 more games this season. That offense is not solved. It's a great defense. It's a really great defense, but their offense is still not good. They're really still going to struggle to score points. And I'm really frustrated at it because it was a bad game plan from Texas. It's a minor miracle that it worked out for them. There was nothing leading up to this game that suggested a game plan like that would work for Texas. None whatsoever. And that really frustrates me.
I mean, yeah, it's frustrating just from the standpoint. It seemed like OU was just overall the better team, the better positioned team. Because we don't need to get into the whole standpoint of even when OU is a national title contender, Texas has probably more talent on their roster. If you just look at recruiting rankings, if you just go down their roster, you can just remember, oh yeah, I really wanted that guy, and it came down to OU and Texas for that guy, and he chose Texas. So yeah, I mean, it's always the case in this game. Texas has a lot of talent. Why do they seem to play over their heads? I mean, I wouldn't necessarily characterize it as that. I mean, if you want to be an elitist OU fan, like yours truly, you can look at it. Well, I mean, they are punching up in this series. I know they've got the win-loss record, but they don't got national titles over us. So to them, it's a gigantic game, and it's a big measuring stick game. And unfortunately, in the last 10 or so years, OU's just found themselves in a position where they seem to be coming into this game with this kind of annoyance of we're never in the proper spot that we want to be in. It's like Texas just lost the week before, so we're going to get their best shot. And I even identified on my show about how Texas is playing for their season right now. If they lose to OU, they're losing 3 more games, 2 to 3 more games at the very least, because Mississippi State on the road is not an automatic win. I mean, hello,
Brady, they're gonna lose to Vanderbilt in a couple of weeks in Austin.
I mean, hello,
they're going to.
Is Jeff Lebby a better head coach than somebody else we know?
Maybe.
And that's not. Look, I'm not trying to sit here and say that you blew it. Texas is bad and that's embarrassing. It's never embarrassing to lose to Texas. To me, it was always embarrassing to lose to OSU, even when OSU was good, because history. Texas is talented. Texas is a blue blood program. They've got national titles in their trophy room. It sucks to lose to them, and I absolutely hate it, but I hate them so much that I respect them. So that's kind of how I view my relationship with the University of Texas. But I've got family members that are Texas fans, and they said as much yesterday. They're of course excited about beating OU. They don't like OU, but they understand this is going to be fun for today. But boy, we all kind of agreed that seemed like a game played by 2 very meh teams, 2 very meh capable teams, 2 teams with great defenses that will keep them in a lot of games, 2 teams with quarterbacks that can randomly make good plays and kind of lift their offenses up by themselves. But overall, you're talking about 8-9 wins at the most for either team. And between OU and Texas fan bases, that's not what you're excited for.
No, obviously not. And so I don't know. I'll be honest with you. Embarrassed is what I mean. How embarrassed can you be when you're not actually playing in the game? And all I know is that I can only talk about how I feel. And listen. I mean, I'm sure you listened to our midweek show where I don't know if you could tell by my tone, but I had a very bad feeling about this game. There's typically when I don't make a prediction, that's how you know that if you put a gun to my head, that means I think OU's going to lose. And to me, Texas being favored for before this game, and I didn't really think there was any reason for Texas to be favored other than John Mateer is hurt. I thought that was really the only reason to, because like we said, all of Texas's biggest weaknesses, and they've been kind of fatal weaknesses this year, weaknesses that have come out against bad competition. It was all what OU did well. And you, like, on your podcast, you breaking up like all of sort of like the most important matchups in this game. When you check the boxes, it looks like OU has the decided advantage in all of them. And I thought that was like, I agreed with you on that, but there was still just like this weird feeling that I had of, I don't know, you could call it like, I'm a fan, and I just think Texas plays great in this game, and it's a coin flip whether or not OU plays average. That's how it's been in the last quarter century since I've been an OU fan.
They
And
absolutely, they absolutely should. So should OU, and that's been the problem. And I mean, we'll get to that probably later at the end of the show, I'm
but like
sure.
I'll say it, like, I watching that game, especially the second half, that was one of those games where, I'm an emotional guy, and I love OU football so much, but it was one of those games where in the evening, I was having some cocktails and was watching other football and was still in my feels and feeling pretty sad about the game. It was one of those games where I was sitting there questioning myself, why do I make this such a big part of my life? This hurts. It was one of those games for me.
Man,
And I
that's what makes it worth it, man. Like, and look, we have the luxury being, attached to OU football, where we have an essential guarantee that in the future OU is going to win a national championship, because we're one of 10, 12 schools that you can say that.
I know you
His
have that faith, but like I'm starting to be like, I don't know. Am I ever gonna see another one? I don't know.
I mean, yes, at the end of the day, do I know that for a fact? Of course not. So you have to kind of err on the side of how you feel. But at some point, OU will have a program, a coaching staff that understands what it needs to do in order to build a great team, not one great side of the ball and then hope that the other side kind of like holds up its end of the bargain. I'm talking about a great team. And OU is one of 10 or 12 schools that you can absolutely do that at. They've got the resources, the give a damn, the buy-in, everything that you could possibly want, you can have at OU. If and when Brent Venables, like, what I don't think that's going to happen this year, even if OU goes 7-5. In the future, who knows? Whenever there is a new head coach for OU, whoever it might be, you're going to essentially restart the clock of, okay, you have everything at your disposal. Now go forth and win. And we've seen it at programs that are similar to OU in terms of their resources, like Oregon with a new head coach. And now we're seeing it at schools that are in no way, shape, or form similar to OU, other than their color scheme, with Kurt Cignetti, your brother's favorite head coach, just beating the absolute tar out of Oregon on the road. So it's really hard. But again, going back to what you said originally, man, like, the hurt kind of makes it worth it, because I don't know how many times I've felt bad or just felt like the world like was ending, or why do I put myself through this crap, only for like a few weeks later or the next year it completely flipping, and it makes the journey all the more worth it. This is where I get corny. This is part of the journey. It's part of our hero's journey of being OU fans.
Perhaps. But what I will say is, as part of that feeling that I had last night and at times today as well, man, I feel like OU is further away from it. While watching that game yesterday, it felt like OU is further away from where we want them to be than I felt they were at any point last year, too. Like, that's how I kind of felt while watching that game. Whereas I think Texas is a good team. I think this is probably Texas's worst team since Sark's first season. Um, and I think this is probably I don't this is not Venables' best team. That 2023 team is better than this OU team. But man, I just, it feels to me that OU is pretty far away from it right now. And you bring up Kurt Cignetti, and he's doing it in Indiana. Indiana just got really lucky. They somehow hired the best coach in college football from James Madison. And so, and James Franklin just got fired today. And I would,
He
if
did?
he did, yeah, he got fired today. And I think
Oh,
I think I
I
think
didn't
Kurt
even notice
Cignetti,
that.
I think Kurt Cignetti very well could be the next head coach at Penn State. And there's no inside. That's just me calling my shot. But Kurt Signetti is not long for the Indiana world. Somebody is going, even though he is 64 years old, someone is going to make him the highest paid coach in college football, and it's not going to be Indiana.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But and we'll get into the whole like I'm not necessarily wanting to dive into the whole is Brent Venables a guy thing. That's one of those things. We'll see what I'm sure Lee will have thoughts on that on our midweek show and everything. Me, I kind of still want to stick with the whole, you know, before this season started, my line was always I think they should move on from Brent Venables if OU does not make the playoff. So until that is completely removed from any sort of realistic possibility, I don't even really want to jump into the whole idea of that stuff. I do know losing that game yesterday, it if OU wants to make a playoff, I mean their chances of it I were absolutely slashed with that. I mean, that was,
Yeah.
like I said, that was their, of the 7 games remaining going into the game yesterday, that was their second most winnable game. And their most winnable is going to be next week against South Carolina. But they desperately needed that game. They really, really needed to win that game.
Yeah.
And
You're
and
basically,
it
I was just
bugs me that OU it did not seem to me that OU played with any sort of urgency. And Texas did look like a team that was fighting for their playoff lives, which bugs me because Texas is going to lose 2 or 3 more games. And like they're not going to get through unscathed the rest of the
yeah.
way.
But
And I
they
I
had
just
the right
hate,
mentality. They had the right
yes, and I
mentality. Like,
hate that OU did not come out and look like a desperate football team because they needed to be. They needed to win that game.
yeah.
And
Like
oh
I,
well, I guess.
I don't question, Brent Venables wants to beat Texas. I'm not going to sit here and say
Of
like
course he does. Of course
armchair
he does.
fan, but in terms of how each coach got their teams prepared for this game, Texas played like the team that they understand what their limitations were. And like to your point, like the Iowa
But
game
did they
plan,
though?
they did because they knew we can't sit Arch Manning back in the pocket for 2 or 3 seconds because this defensive line will kill him. Like we're not going to allow that to happen. So they quick passes, nothing really too far developing. Anytime that there was pressure, I think Stoya outlined this on the post game on their post game pod for Sooner Scoop. It seemed like their coaching staff told Manning, if you feel any pressure, roll out, and we'll have someone trailing that you can just dump it off to, because we're not going to let the Cotton Bowl be like your coffin. So they went into this game like between those two coaches. Texas understood their limitations. They understand that, yeah, we're probably to make the playoff, it's going to be a tall task given our flaws, because throughout an entire season, those flaws will result in 3 or 4 losses. But we're not going to let one of those losses be to these guys. And that's exactly what they went into this game with. OU went into this game thinking John Mateer's going to be here, so we're safe because the defense is awesome and they're going to always be awesome. And no, you need to go into this game like it is the Super Bowl. Who knows what happens, especially with OU's schedule? Who knows what happens? You need to go into this game thinking we have no idea if we're going to be undefeated, 9-3, 7-5, but you know what? One of those losses ain't going to be to Texas. And that's the mentality they needed. They did not have it.
Yeah, I guess like I would push back on because like Texas relied on their offensive line in this game, which in the first 5 games was clearly the weak link of their team. And I think their entire game plan revolved around their offensive line playing well. And that's a bad idea because I don't think there, like I said, I don't think there was any evidence to suggest that Texas's offensive line would play well against Oklahoma going into this game. And Texas, that was their game plan, and it worked. It
I
somehow
think
worked.
I think they probably went into this game with we have if you're Texas, we have to sit here and assume that the Michigan and the Auburn games were kind of fool's gold in terms of OU's defensive performance, because Michigan, I mean, especially after last night's game against USC, Um, Maybe the Michigan game was more of they have a true freshman quarterback, so it's much easier to load up on the run and stop it and make them one dimensional. And then Auburn, their biggest problem is just Jackson Arnold, even though their offense is basically tailor made to be a powerful rushing attack, even with Jackson Arnold, because it's like he's a good mobile quarterback, but he's not very mobile because he doesn't jump out of the pocket and use that athleticism. So it seems like Texas went in this game questioning, is OU really good at stopping the run, or are they just the product of having played two teams that should be good running attacks, but they aren't because of some weird circumstances, and one being a true freshman quarterback and the other being Jackson Arnold? And if that be the case, then they won on their bet, because again, they couldn't really do much else. There was no other plan to have. It was either you do that, you question Oklahoma's physicality, which is a safe bet, like you've outlined in the last 5 or 6 years, where OU has not been the most physical team in this game. So I think that that's a safe bet to make just off recent history in this series. But also, the alternative is try to be explosive. And that would play right into what OU wants you to do, is they want your quarterback to stand in the pocket tall and long and get hit and fumble the ball, or just get hit over and over again that you start seeing go. So I didn't expect that to happen. This was really the only thing that Texas could have done from a strategy standpoint, and their guys just kicked their ass. It was as simple as that.
I guess what I would say is Texas hasn't gone into their previous 5 games before yesterday being like, we're not going to try to run the ball, or we're not going to try to throw it 6 or 7 yards down the field. They have done those things, and they've failed at them consistently against San Jose State and UTEP and Florida, which got whomped by Texas A&M yesterday. Texas had not been good on the offensive side of the ball up leading up to this, and there was just nothing to suggest that they would have that much success running the ball in this game. Like, I'm going through the drive chart. Arch has been dreadful in 3rd and long this year. He's been really bad. He was terrific yesterday on 3rd and long. Terrific. And
There's an NFL throw in his in their own goal on their own goal line. That was an NFL throw.
Yeah,
and that's
probably
that's when you texted our group chat that you guys bring up so much. That's when you texted the group chat, said this game's over, and
this game is over.
Yeah, I felt it too. It was like, that doesn't happen in games that you win.
And it was just like that thing where, I mean, he was, and you could see it on the you saw, Grayson Halton come around on the wraparound, and he is just right there. I mean, he has Arch right in his tracks. And if Arch just would have been a split second late on him rolling out, I mean, it's not a safety, but he's sacked and he's down like at the 1 yard line. And he's able to, he's able to escape, and that's a great throw. That's a great throw that he made. And is it his best throw of the season? I don't know. Like, I said on the midweek that Arch was not the biggest problem on this team. Like, I thought Arch actually played pretty well against Florida for the most part. But Arch is also not some sort of dynamic playmaker. I mean, Quinn Ewers is at this stage in their college careers, much better college quarterback than Arch Manning is. Much, much better. Sam Ehlinger, much better college quarterback than Arch Manning is at this point in time. Look at Arch's numbers. He couldn't push the ball down the field in this game. Like, it's not who he is. He's a game manager who's able to keep plays alive with his legs. That's who he is. And at this point in time, that's who he's going to be against other teams. And I'm already just like preemptively, I'm already getting annoyed watching Arch look like crap against Mississippi State, because it's coming. It's coming. And I'm sick of Texas playing exceptionally well in this game. Like I said, in the midweek show, it had been 13 years since Texas had played poorly in this game, and I feel like in that same 13-year span, OU's probably played poorly like 8 or 9 times, and I'm sick of it. Like, what is it about this that makes it, like, how can you not be ready to play with your hair on fire against Texas, especially a Texas team that you should be able to tee off on defensively?
Well,
so
I won't say it from the OU standpoint because this isn't my show. But you know how I personally feel. So I'll say it from the Texas standpoint. I can explain it very easily. Texas sucked for 10 years. And in those 10 years, they cycled through three coaches, and they range from Charlie Strong was one of the most sought after assistants when he was becoming a head coach from Florida. He was the next great, like, yeah, like this guy should be a head coach somewhere. Texas needed a head coach at the time. It's outside of the box. It's SEC defensive coordinator, national title coordinator, great defenses, great track record. Yeah, it didn't work. Tom Herman, that, kind of tracked a little bit. He had success at Houston. He knew the area recruiting wise. He seemed like the right kind of psychopath that you wanted, but unfortunately for them, he was the incorrect type of psychopath. He's just kind of weird. And he brought them some success, but not the success that Texas wants. And then they were able to get Sark from the Nick Saban Rehabilitation Center. When you suck for a long time, you have to go through periods of like looking yourself in the mirror and asking yourself, why do we suck? Why are we this bad? What are we doing wrong? OU in that same time frame was winning the Big 12, going to the playoff, losing in the playoff, but they were successful. They were winning Heismans. They were getting guys drafted #1 overall in the NFL. They had all this success. They did have a gigantic glaring flaw, but they were so successful that they didn't need to like sit there and like ask themselves, what do we need to fix? We're so close. Texas is basically just, they're on the other end of what OU should have started a handful of years ago, but because they didn't, this is where we are, and that's why they are where they are.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up those three coaches though. Charlie Strong, his teams punched above their weight every single year he coached in that game. Is it 13, 14, 15, and 16 was all. Texas had no
14.
business even.
13 was Mac Brown's last year. It was 14,
was 13?
15.
Are you
Mac
sure?
Brown, yeah, that was Case McCoy's.
Okay, you're right. Okay.
Yeah, that was Mac Brown's last year. And then
14,
Charlie Strong only got 3 years.
Okay, were you at the 2014 game? That was a game that OU was exceptionally lucky to win. They only won that game because of a pick six and a kickoff return for a touchdown. Play in and play out, Texas whooped OU's butt in that game. 2015, we all know how that game went. We all like that was Lincoln Riley's first offense. Baker Mayfield was there. Texas was bad that year. That was a really bad Texas team, and they physically manhandled Oklahoma. 2016, finally, OU had like 700 yards of offense in that game, and that was like the big D.D. Westbrook game, which was awesome. But OU gave up 40 points to a really bad Texas offense. You go into the Tom Herman. Tom Herman punched above his weight class every single year that he played in that game. The 2017 game, OU gets up 20-0, and then they allow Texas to take the lead in the fourth quarter. 2018, they lose their first time against Texas before beating them in the Big 12 championship game. 2019, another game where actually OU kind of kicked Texas's butt in that game, but somehow only won by like 5. The whole thing is just silly to me. And trying to think of like, honestly, the only time in the last 14, editions of that game in October now, the only time Texas did not play very well was 2023. And in that game, I thought Texas played okay in that game, and OU played really well. So I don't know. I'm just like, and this is me. I'm sure like if there's a Texas fan listening to this, they're probably just like, I don't know. They're probably doing something off camera that none of us want to see because it's just so delicious to them. But
I'd hope we don't look like that one guy that still looks like a boy. But it's not an insult. When you're 50 years old, that's going to be great.
Yeah.
I'm at the level of fan where, if I'm ever angry, I'm rarely ever angry at the team OU loses to. Because OU either squandered an opportunity or they were physically beaten up by the opponent, and in which case I say, well, we shouldn't be physically beaten. Why were we physically beaten? So that to me is like a tip of the cap to the opponent, understanding full well that OU should be better and they weren't. So, yeah, it's frustrating. Just from the standpoint, it's a rivalry game, and not that, not that I thought OU was going to win a national championship this year, but OU's never won a national title in a year where they lost to Texas. They've never, of all their 7 national championships, every single one of those years they beat Texas. And that's why this game is important. It is an absolute benchmark. It doesn't guarantee a national championship, of course, but it definitely tells you if OU's already won games before and they go into the Cotton Bowl with some momentum and some optimism. If they can leave the Cotton Bowl the victor, I mean, the sky's the limit, and they've got to look themselves in the mirror. They've got a good quote unquote opportunity with South Carolina, and to me, Grant, like you might remember this from Keyhole episodes of the offseason, South Carolina was the game that told me, is this team serious about winning or losing? Because I expected them to be undefeated going into the Cotton Bowl. I predicted 9-3. That's kind of the standard that I wanted to hold this team to. Is I feel like they're talented enough to go 9-3. I thought they'd be 5-0 going into the Cotton Bowl. I didn't really want to predict what would happen because it is OU Texas. Texas is probably a better team in the offseason that, from what we thought. But I thought, win or lose in the Texas game, can you either bounce back from a loss or can you either continue the momentum from an emotional win? If they can beat South Carolina, okay, all right. Put your best foot forward because that's all they can do. I understand how easy it is to just sit here and say, who cares? Like, fire Brent Venables, like blah, 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 blah. I've even asked a lot of those same questions myself, but they still have opportunities. When you have the number 5, number 11, number 6, and number 16 and number 10 team on your schedule, look, if they go undefeated, great. I mean, I don't think they will. If they go undefeated, great. It will still suck that they lost to Texas. Trust me. I mean, that's why this game is important.
Yeah. And so, all right, well, I guess some grab bag stuff here.
I hope the cops aren't after you, Grant. Did you
Oh, can you hear that? Yeah.
property damage last night?
It's what happens when it's what happens when you live in the city. I mean, it's crazy how many fire like sirens and police sirens that happen only when the show is recording. I swear, like when it's not recording, I very rarely hear that stuff. So
Are
that's just
Minnesotans like terrified of you during college football season? Like local college football freak Grant Benson, they're like,
yeah.
why does he take this sport so seriously?
Oh gosh, yeah. No, I think everybody is still kind of burning the city down from Minnesota's huge win over Purdue last night,
Oh,
which
there
I
you go.
didn't which I did not attend. So, all
See, they
right,
bounced back from a big loss.
yeah, oh gosh, yeah. They by getting, outgained 2-1 by Purdue and somehow still winning. So, we'll see. But okay, I guess we'll kind of go back to I know I had some cuz I thought the offensive game plan for the most part was pretty bad. I didn't, and so the one thing that I really thought of while watching the game that just drives me nuts is, and I alluded to this earlier in the show of asking guys to do stuff that they're bad at, and so we saw it all of 2023 with the offense continuously asking Austin Stogner to block in the box when he was terrible at it. And it was just like whenever doing
Yeah.
it, like it lowered their ceiling offensively like way more when they were asking Stogner to do that, which was pretty much always. And I'm seeing it now with Jaron Kanik and you mentioned the hold on Carson Kent and everything, and I'm just like, why are you putting him in these positions? I'm sick of this crap. I just because it's all just about this is what we want to do. Let's run our stuff, and we now have 6 games to know that there is not a single tight end on this roster that can block anything up. So why do you ask them to do it? Stop doing it. I'm sick
Yeah.
of this. I'm sick of all of this. This is to me this is a and I really like Kanik as a pass catching threat and everything. I don't want him in the box. Split him out. They need to be in 10 personnel and with Kanik as a wide receiver, not a tight end. They need to spread everything out to make easier running lanes. I'm just I hate doing this. If your guys suck at blocking in the box, don't ask them to do it. And it is what, like, I wish OU was better running the ball. I really, really wish they were. But the fact of the matter is, John Mateer is the best running back they have on the team. And the strength of their offense is John Mateer completing forward passes down the field to OU's pretty decent but not great wide receiver core. And that's what their offense needs to be. Spread everyone out, make the picture really, really clear, get back the defense off by completing passes down the field, and then maybe try to run the ball with bigger, wider lanes and a clearer box picture. That's who they are. The thing is, though, it's been 6 games now. They're not going to change. They're still going to try to ask Jaron Kanak to block on the edges and block Anthony Hill, and they're going to ask, and I know like Jaden Knott, who I think played 3 plays yesterday, and he his first snap of the game, he looked like he wanted to be anywhere else in the entire world but block Anthony Hill on that jet sweep.
He
And
needs he needs to just go. I mean,
yeah, it's not, but also at the same time, because, and then the very next play, he dropped that little swing pass, which was blocked up actually pretty nice, and he would
Yep.
have had some space to maneuver. But also, I do like, because I know people have been showing the highlight clip of the jet sweep where he didn't even get a finger on Anthony Hill, and he's like, whatever. But my big thing is, why are you asking Jade not to do that? That's not fair. That's not fair at all. We haven't, and now, like, we've seen them try to run that jet sweep now, and if Javonte Barnes is not the lead blocker, that play sucks. It does not work. And everyone knows I am far from a Javonte Barnes defender, but the guy is a terrific lead blocker. This is now 2 straight games we have not seen him at all, which I guess, whatever. I mean, 'tis the season. But, like, why are you asking Jade Knott to head up, block the best linebacker in college football, and then everybody crucifies him for it? That's BS. That is not putting him in a good position to succeed. And I know he dropped that swing pass. That was a good position for him to succeed, and he just biffed it. But also, I'm just like, that's another thing where I said in 2023, there's an incongruence between the offensive coordinator, Jeff Lebby, and the other position coaches of they are not calling plays based on who is on the field. And that is how I felt in that moment, too. Why are you calling that play when you know it's the running back as the lead blocker, and your lead blocker out there is Jade Knott for his first snap of the game? That's stupid, period. That's my
yeah,
point.
yeah. I 100% agree with you with the tight ends. We don't need to go on a deep dive about that. I mean, Joe John Finley is still on staff. Why? I don't know how.
I don't know. I don't know.
The Jade Knott thing, I agree based on the evidence that we've seen all year, but from the evidence that we cannot see being practice, in order for me to be consistent, I was very pleased with his performance against Kent State. I just thought, because all I said was, I think he earned some opportunities against Texas early, and let's see if he can build off of that. If he pops off a run, like I would rather see him before a Javonte Barnes or a Xavier Robinson. Like Torrey Blaylock starts.
Carrying the ball, yes, but like everybody watched the Kent State game. We all know what run concepts he looked good on. His very first snap out on the field, why don't you put him in one of those concepts? He's a guy that you've been saying that you want to get going. It's a run play. Who cares if you're being if you're being predictable? I mean, Texas was predictable in them running the ball, and they still ran it down OU's throat. Give Jade Knott an actual good situation for him to get a rhythm going. And I think, and he does. He looks like, I think you had texted that, or it was Lee who texted in our group chat that he just doesn't look like he likes football. And like, I
Yeah.
kind of agree with him on that. But also, he has not been put in any good situations to succeed at all this year. And I think that little jet sweep is the perfect encapsulation of that. Which is like,
Well,
sure, you would want him to lay a finger on Anthony Hill. That wasn't going anywhere. Anthony Hill is just going to toss him to the side, and the result of the play was going to be exactly the same.
be that as it may, if Jade Knott, if you fancy yourself an NFL running back, they hit each other in the NFL too. And I think I told you on last week's West of Everest after Kent State that play where I believe it was a screen pass to Jade Knott, and he broke through some initial tackles, and he was kind of freed up in no man's land around a bunch of defenders, and he just kind of slowly backed up like he was just, I'm down. It's like when you're a kid playing football, tackle football with your friends, and you get hit really hard, and you're just like, I'm down, I'm down, I'm down. You just say it out loud. That to me was like, I'm going to keep my eye on that because of all the things we've heard of him in the off season, during the season, explaining why he's not out there, explaining why he's not been explosive when he has had a few opportunities. I thought, is he afraid of getting hit? Is he afraid of contact? And yeah, that little swing pass or whatever, that end around, having him as the lead blocker, I want to assume it's because he has been putting together a few weeks of really good practice. That's what Ben Arbuckle and Brent Venables have said. So maybe he's not afraid of contact in practice because you throw him out there to go do that with the confidence that we've seen him do this. Now just go do it. You don't have to decleat Anthony Hill. You just need to preoccupy him so that Deion Burks can get around him for a big chunk play. And he bounced out like he didn't want to touch him. So that's why I'm like, he needs to just hit the portal or redshirt or do something because it's not going to happen here, and it's a bad look
Well,
for
he
both
can't.
parties.
He can't. I don't think he can redshirt. I mean, he's played in 5 games. I'm pretty sure. So he's cooked. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, he
his
did play against Temple. He also
yeah
looked like
his
he also didn't look like he wanted to hit anybody against Temple.
yeah. So his college career, if he doesn't play the rest of it, is over. He can't play anymore, and so he's got to. I mean, anyway, and I don't think I thought he looked disinterested, and there's other guys who I think are just deserve playing time over him, but also I still think that again. I think the weird DeMarco Murray of it all reared its ugly head again yesterday. We saw Xavier Robinson for the first time in 3 games. Why? What like
There's no
it
rhyme or
is it?
reason for any of these rotations, and I like Xavier Robinson.
I do
Like
too.
I was excited for him going into the season. There's just nothing. There's no consistency. It reminds me of Josh Heupel's offenses. Like the biggest fatal flaw with Josh Heupel when he was the OC here was you'd have one week where you'd throw 60 balls. You'd have one week where you wouldn't throw it more than 15 times. And there's a part of that that's like, well, that's good to adapt, but he it didn't seem like Heupel was running an offense that adapted. It seemed like he was just one week he wanted to do something, the next week he wanted to do something completely different. And oftentimes he was asking quarterbacks like Trevor Knight or Blake Bell, who were not passing quarterbacks, to essentially run Landry Jones's offense, who could throw 40 or 50 times a game because he was a talented passer. The biggest problem there was there's no identity. I don't know what the identity is for the Oklahoma running back room whatsoever. And I like Torrey Blaylock. I thought he was one of the few offensive players that played hard yesterday. I felt really bad for him because he wanted it. I didn't question his give a damn. He just had absolutely nowhere to go. The few times where he was able to find some room, I mean, kind of like Lee's criticism reared its ugly head where he doesn't run to space. But unfortunately, so be it, because DeMarco Murray has just proven to be either not a very good recruiter, and not necessarily recruiter, because people will point to, like, whenever I say that, people are like, he signed a 5-star and a 4-star and this guy and this guy. It's like, okay, well, does he have a good eye for talent? Because sometimes you can identify certain unquantifiables that don't get put into On3 or 247 on a recruiting website. And I don't know how people didn't know that Taylor Tatum probably had I mean, I don't want to say bad attitude, but he just never looks interested when he's on the sideline standing around by himself when I'm in the game or when I'm at games. What do I know? I'm just going by what I see. And when you don't play, it allows my mind to go through like little silly conspiracy theory, like reasonings to explain it. Does he have a good eye for talent? I would say no. Does he develop guys? I would say absolutely not. When he has a talented room of guys that can do it, can he juggle? No, he can't do that at all. The best OU running back right now is playing for Cincinnati. Like that's what pisses me off.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, I can write an entire dissertation on the failures of DeMarco Murray at Oklahoma. obviously, but I like going back to Blaylock. I think Blaylock has shown himself this year to be a nice player. I still like how what Lee and I always talk about, that running back is the position that you can see it early on more
Yeah.
than any other position. And I still don't think Torrey Blaylock really has quote unquote it. He just doesn't to me. I think he's a nice player. That's about the best I can say about him up to this point. But I think for OU's offense to be really great, they need a guy who's more dynamic back there. And I don't think Torrey Blaylock's that dynamic.
His one play where he popped off a long run that got called back for a hold, and this was a play where the play was helped by the hold. I believe it was on Jaron Canick, or was it Deion Burks? I can't remember.
It was Canick. It was Canick.
Even that play, at least from my angle, maybe this isn't the case from a better angle or Torrey's angle or the broadcast angle. Seemed like if he had cut upfield instead of bounced it kind of like sliding outside towards the boundary, that he would have had a lot of room to work with. I mean, that was one thing that Texas did with Weisner. Like, he would just routinely cut upfield and allow his guys to block for him downfield on that 3rd and 7 that we already mentioned with the Robert Spears Jennings missed tackle. If you go closer to the boundary, like, there's no one there to help you. If you can make a guy miss and cut upfield, your guys are going to be running, sprinting their ass off trying to go help you out. That's not being coached to these running backs whatsoever.
No. And about DeMarco Murray being able to spot talent or whatever, what I will say is that Dalen Smothers is having an all ACC, nay, borderline All American level season at North Carolina State right now. And I mean, you can't. I don't know what the inside story was about Smother, because like I know he, early in 2023, he kind of left the team, then came back, whatever. And based on what we know about DeMarco Murray, I'm sure DeMarco Murray was probably just a massive dick to him. Probably, I like that's all I can think of. And he probably chased him away, just like he chased away Tawi Walker. And so it'd be nice to have Dalen Smothers on the team right now, who's having a great season. And
well, if he was, he either wouldn't play or he wouldn't be this good. I mean, they could have. I mean, just who's the last, like Rodney Anderson? A healthy Rodney Anderson could be on this team, and I'm not convinced that it would really even matter. And,
yeah, maybe not.
And we would be remiss. We've been doing this for over an hour. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention the offensive line and Bill Bedenbaugh.
Yeah, they weren't.
Because as much frustration as DeMarco Murray's management of the running back room as much as frustration as it gives me, running backs can't do jack crap if they don't have people blocking for them. And I know 2023 is fondly remembered as, like you mentioned, it's Brent's best year. They beat Texas. Overall, good year when you consider how bad they were the year before. It was a good step forward for Brent Venables that ultimately did not really lead anywhere, but still a long season in 2025. But that offensive line had problems too. And
in the first half of the season, they ran the ball very effectively in the second half of the year, I thought, that year.
To me, it just comes from the standpoint of when I'm told that you are the best offensive line coach in the country over and over and over again, and you have the skins on the wall, you have the recruiting, you have everything at your disposal. You've got this long track record. I understand like a down year or two. This is now like 2023, fine. Was it to the standard of OU offensive lines that we've come to we become accustomed of? I would say no. This is 3 years in a row of, bad offensive line play. And I know the recruiting is hot right now. You get Michael Fasusi. He started and played okay in this game, in his first Red River rivalry game. He had to go up against Colin Sims a handful of times. That is not an easy task. He's only going to get better. But again, you're having to rely on an 18-year-old to be your left tackle. Why? And there's an obvious reason why, but to me, Grant, it's just, this is the 3rd year in a row where the offensive line is not up to par for OU. It's also the 3rd year in a row where I don't feel like it's going to get any better throughout the year. There's really no hope for that. And if that be the case, you're you're putting John Mateer in mortal harm the rest of the year with this schedule, because if OU's going to run the ball, it's going to be because of him. And the recruiting's hot right now for the offensive line, but recruiting doesn't mean anything. Just like we talked about with DeMarco Murray, doesn't mean anything if you don't develop them. And they've got guys hurt, but that's the guys that you have, and you've happened to oversee a handful of guys that are just injured all the time. So can't use that excuse, because that's what you are. Like you are relying on guys who are often injured. So don't want to hear that excuse. OU's offensive line, I thought, had not an advantage over Texas's defensive line, but I thought, like I had mentioned, they've won battles against Michigan and Auburn. They should be able to win some battles against this Texas defense. They won no battles against this Texas defense. And on the opposite end, Texas's offensive line won a lot of battles over Oklahoma's defensive line. That, to me, is unforgivable. That's absolutely unforgivable on both sides. And Bill Bedenbaugh, that is Cooper Hackett, Caden Penny, great. They don't get to save you for another 2 seasons. And do we think the offensive line is going to get better this year? Do we think it's going to be better next year? I mean, who's coming to save them? I don't know.
Yeah, and I think this is a good place to end, because I do have something, so I'll respond, and then I'll let you respond one more time to what I say. So I've always been of the opinion, like I think Lee and I have always been, we've kind of punched above our weight in terms of being Bill Bedenbaugh defenders, I think. Him and I last year even agreed, like last year's offensive line was atrocious. I mean, they were dreadful a vast majority of the year. They were a turnstile. Where I will push back on you is that I thought the 2022 and 2023 offensive lines were terrific, like top 10 units in the country, terrific. 2022 they were that 2022 offensive line was the best one they've had since the Joe Moore award-winning offensive line. Blocked up the run game really well. They were great in pass protection. 2023, I thought they were spectacular in pass pro, and not great blocking up the run in the first half of the year, but we're a lot better in the second half of the year. That doesn't excuse how bad last year was. It was really bad. And
Real
I don't
quick,
think...
Is it too much of me to expect both? I'm tired of hearing they're good at this,
Not
but
really.
they're not particularly good at that. If you have the best offensive line coach in the country, I'm dumb. I expect good at both of those things, but it seems like it's too much to ask to be good at both of them.
And so but like also, I don't think the talent level on the offensive line is as good as it was in 2022 and 23. And I think that's pretty clear while watching it. What I will say, though, is that this is an OU team. The offense has not been as injured as it was a season ago. The offensive line has been just as injured this year as they were last year. And I do think that plays a pretty big role in this stuff. Logan Howland being out for this game ended up being a massive deal, because then you have your fourth, you have like your third swing tackle having to play a majority of the game with Luke Backlinko. And hey, if everywhere else on your offensive line is really good, then you can live with playing Luke Backlinko for 3/4 in a big game like this. But it wasn't a good situation today. So this is what I will say also. I was of the opinion, even being a Bill Bedenbaugh defender myself, because I still only think that he's put up one truly, truly bad offensive line, and that was a season ago. This year, I think they can't block up the run. Like, I'm not going to defend that at all. But I still think they're good in pass protection. Hell, Brady, I thought they were better in pass protection yesterday than they were against Kent State 2 weeks ago. So I
did feel like a lot of the pressure that John Mateer encountered was more to do with him standing in the pocket too long, which was because, like he mentioned in the post game, his eyes weren't where they needed to be because he was just off target. He was off rhythm. He was off timing, everything. And that's unfortunately what OU signed up for by hoping that their quarterback could come back from a 3-week injury. And they got him back, but that's going to happen. If John Mateer had practiced, I don't think he probably wouldn't have endured as much pressure as he did. It was more on him.
Yeah. And so, But I also think it was my position last season that when they hired Ben Arbuckle and everyone like Luttrell got fired and everything like that, it was my position that it's very reasonable to expect you to turn over the entire coaching staff with that. Like if it would have been okay for them to move on from Bill Bedenbaugh at the end of last season, just because he was part of the worst offense OU had had in quarter of a century. And fair or not, it maybe would have been a good idea just to have a totally blank, blank, head start there with like Arbuckle can pick his guys, and so it's everyone there. And so I'll wait to see how the rest of the season goes to say all of that stuff. But if Brent Venables does, end up coming back another year, if we can and he doesn't replace the entire coaching staff not named Ben Arbuckle and John Kuzieski, then that will be another red flag that we can point towards and say, is this guy capable of making the difficult decisions? Because at this point in time, if you got to move on from Bedenbaugh just because, I'm okay with that. And I've never been a guy who is just like, oh, don't fire this guy or do that because you're going to lose recruits. I don't care. I don't care about the recruits. We've already proven that if OU wins 3 games in a row, a bunch of guys, 5 stars who were previously committed to Texas Tech, they're back committed to you again if you do that. So,
Yeah.
I don't mind that stuff. But if they got to move on from Bedenbaugh, then I'm okay with that. But I think it's just he's been here for 13, 14 years. Sometimes you just kind of run out of steam, and it's best for both parties for a fresh start. And maybe they need someone else there. So I would be okay with that. It's indefensible that Joe John Finley and DeMarco Murray are still part of this coaching staff. And it was indefensible back in January as well. So,
Yeah, I mean,
any final thoughts?
I mean, in order to be consistent, I mean, you're right. I think everybody was pleasantly surprised with Jaron Canick so much that they forgot who was coaching him. Because, I mean, I've been saying whenever his lack of physical tools kind of rears its ugly head, like when he has to be the lead blocker on a play, I don't get mad at him. I've said, like, I'm not going to blame a linebacker for being the starting tight end because that's not his fault. Jaron Canick's he's a team player. He's a great teammate. He's a great player. He helps OU's offense be better when he has the football in his hands. But there is an absolute black hole in that room, and it's not Jaron Canick. So, OU's next opponent, South Carolina. They happen to be, I think they have a worse yards per rush than OU overall this season, just slightly. And South Carolina deemed that not to the standard and let their offensive line coach go. So Shane Beamer at least can look at something and say, this is not good enough, and I need to make a difficult decision. Because I don't know, I can't remember who the guy's name was, but I'm sure Shane Beamer liked him. But if it ain't working, then it ain't working. This is all about winning. This is not about networking and being friends with people. Somebody used to do that,
Indeed.
but they're making Sonic commercials now.
Yeah. Something tells me that that OU's defensive line is going to see, or that rather South Carolina's new offensive line coach, they're probably going to be repping a lot of outside zone blocking schemes in practice this week, forcing OU's big, really good defensive tackles to run in space. And because that's kind of what unlocked everything for Texas in the run game yesterday was that little sort of weird, slow developing outside zone play that I thought they had quite a bit of success on. So, well, Brady, I appreciate you coming on. This is definitely cathartic in some sort of sense. I hated that game yesterday so much. Obscenely disappointing, an excruciating game to watch. Just sit on your couch and watch it. And let's hope that there are brighter days ahead this season for Oklahoma. I don't know if I would bet a whole lot of money on that being the case, but we will see what happens. There's always next week. They got another game coming up and a game that's very, very winnable. So I'm sure we'll have tons and tons of hot takes before and after that game. Before we get out of here, one more time, Brady, just tell everybody where they can listen to you, where they can hear you.
Yeah, it's Through the Keyhole. It's the wherever you listen to podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, our YouTube channel. Go check it out. We've got a Patreon page, patreon.com/Through the Keyhole, which I'm about to go jump on our post-game show in the next 5-6 minutes. So I got good and warmed up for that one with you, Grant. So thank you for letting me jump back on in lieu of Lee Benson. But I'm looking forward to hearing Lee's thoughts. He's going to rewatch the game, and I'm pretty sure rip OU a new one because he does it much better than I do. I'm way too rambly and get too upset. But yeah, always fun to jump on my favorite OU podcast here.
Well, your podcast is also my favorite, and I appreciate that. And I'm like, I don't know, I fully expect Lee to be thrilled with how that game went, seeing as that he's a Longhorn now. He's spent the last 2 weekends in Austin.
No, he
So
doesn't.
we'll
He doesn't care about it's just another game. Remember, he doesn't care about it.
that is actually a true thought that he has, which is bizarre to me. But
He's
anyway,
moved on to his
so.
Chicago Bears.
Oh my gosh, that's discussion for another day. So, all right, Brady, thanks again. Very much appreciate it. This was fun. So for Brady, I am Grant. We will see you guys the middle of the week. Have a good one.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe to the show. And if you want to help us spread the word, please leave us a 5-star review. And also, tell all of your friends who are OU fans about West of Everest. You can listen to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and SoundCloud.